Yo, yo, yo. Hey guys, welcome back to the Best Practices Show podcast. Our goal around here is to find you great information, great thinkers, great leaders in dentistry to share information, help you create a better practice and a better life. And today's subject is dental marketing. Sometimes it's just too much to think about and too much to do. Well, we bring back Santos, and he shares 3 common dental marketing mistakes that most dentists make and how to fix them. And if you do it right, you can do it yourself and change everything. So please listen up. I hope you guys enjoy it, and we'll see you soon. Hey guys, welcome back to the Best Practices Show podcast. You know the jam around here. My job is to find the best thinkers, teachers, partners, speakers, influencers in all of dentistry, share some information to help you create a better practice and a better life. And that's why it's called the Best Practices Show. And today we have one of our great partners on, Pain-Free Dental Marketing, Santos. And we're going to be talking about some of the common mistakes that a lot of dentists make that you can fix today. So thanks for being here, brother. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me, Kirk. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah. So let's start here. I always start here. We're going to be talking about a lot of stuff today, but I always want our guests, and our listeners to know who they're listening to. So who's Santos and what is Pain-Free Dental Marketing?
All right. I think, to start, let's start at the beginning. I think Santos is a software engineer turned marketer. It's kind of an accident in life, like some things are. I met my business partner, Eric, while we were at GameStop. Never thought I'd be doing marketing my entire life, but, life has its own plan sometimes. But Pain-Free Dental Marketing is an agency that specializes in dentistry. That's all that we do. But I think at the core, our approach to our clients is learning who they are and making that the marketing, right? Because I think nowadays patients have so many choices in terms of dentistry and procedures and options. So how do you make a practice stand out? And most of our clients are not looking for every patient out there. They're looking for people who value what they value and all those things. And I think the best way to do that is to focus on it. So we try to help our practices grow and try to tell their story. I think that's the key.
Yeah, that is so cool. So it's not always about new patients or likes, impressions, all those things. Start with the foundation of who you are and build around it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, take us through this. When it comes to mistakes, what are some of the big ones? And let's create a dialogue around each one of them, because I'm sure I have a bunch of questions on each one of them.
Yeah. So you got to first think about what is a regular patient journey as they're, maybe they moved, maybe they got married. There's some life event that makes them decide that today is the day that they're looking for a dentist. I think most people would start by asking some friends or family if they have a connection or, they know they have someone they trust. But if outside of that, they're usually going online. And this is why I think thinking about what does your online presence look like is the best place to start. And that is a mistake number one that I see, which is the websites that we see out there are, number one, not mobile friendly. And I think that's a byproduct of the majority of the time when they're working with the company to build the websites, we're working on our desktops, either at the office or at home, and you're seeing designs, you're seeing the screens on your desktop. And a lot of people don't stop to think about what does it look like on a phone. But we have a lot of data to show that over 85, 87% of the traffic that we see, Kirk, on our clients' websites are on mobile devices. Very small percentage of it is tablet and the rest is desktop. But during the development process, most people are working on desktops, both the marketing agencies and the dentist. So I think that's a byproduct of that. But beyond that, even if it does look good on a mobile device, is it really personal to the practice and to the dentist? Because most of the time, what we see is a whole bunch of stock photography.
Right.
And, most dentists are not excited when we tell them that they got to get on camera, they got to get some pictures. So it's easy to see how the easiest path to success, air quotes, is getting some Shutterstock photos and putting them up there. But from a patient perspective, dentistry is very personal. Hopefully you're not getting your dental work redone. You want to know who is going to be working on you. What does the office look like? Do I feel like I can trust this person, this team? And that's why I think that the number one mistake is relying on stock photography to tell your story because it's not personal enough.
Yeah. And then I always want to ask you about just generic sites. A lot of times, do people still buy the generic sites for dentistry and use them that everybody else is using?
They
I mean,
do.
okay.
They do. And I understand, right? I think I put myself in the shoes of a dentist who is trying to figure out the ops and the layout and the equipment and the hiring. There's so many things to do and choose. And here comes this option, which is you pay a few $100 and you get a site that's entirely ready for you. You just got to pick, do you want blue or green? And at that time, it doesn't feel like the most important decision. And it isn't, right? You have
Right.
much bigger decisions than that. But it is a critical decision in terms of attracting the right patients because if you open the doors and there's no one to see, there's not anybody to help. But, and I think the other piece of it that I understand it too, how it comes to be, most people make their decisions based on their own personal experiences, right? And if a doctor is accustomed to relying on their friends and family for the decision making first before going to the internet, so to speak, I understand why they think it isn't that important. But the problem is that that's only one piece of the pie in terms of patients and their journey. And so I understand how it happens. But yeah, it happens a lot. And when I'm meeting a new potential client, that's usually 8 times out of 10, 9 times out of 10, what I see.
Yeah. And you guys probably look at a lot of data. I'm guessing 85% plus mobile traffic, patients looking up a dental office. What pages are they going to first? Is it obviously maybe the homepage, but then where?
Great question. Number one, far and above, of course, is the homepage. But number two is actually the about page, Kirk. Most of the traffic after the homepage is the about page. And we shared that with our clients to show them that people care about the people. They want to know the team. They want to know the doctor and their story because they want to make sure that you're a right fit. So number two is the homepage. Sorry, number one is the homepage. Number two is the about page. If there is any sort of specials page, that's often the third place. Or if that one isn't there, we're looking at the small gallery if that's available.
Okay.
And if that's not there, it's usually the contact us or appointment request type of page. Um, Next.
Okay. Sounds good. Tell me what your favorite about page is conceptually, whether it be actually or conceptually. When you create an about page, because you're talking my jam, people care about people. What's your favorite stuff on an about page?
Yeah, I love when the doctors talk about who they are as people, not just as professionals, that's clinicians.
Okay.
I love when they talk about their hobbies and they have pictures of their family. They have, just their passion as a full human being. Not usually what I see is like the last two sentences of their bio on their free time. Dr. Kirk loves to be outside and travel and be with his family. That's
Yeah.
great. I believe that's true, but it doesn't make me feel like I know what kind of guy you are versus if you share a little bit more, talk about your hobbies. One of the ones that come to my mind, we used to have this client, she sold her practice now, she was super short, like a very petite, unassuming woman, but she was a legit like power lifter. And she was doing those Olympic lifts and some part of her site, she started blogging about the competitions that she was going to and her personal records and CrossFit and this and the other. And her patients loved it. Her patients
Mhm.
engaged with it. They asked her questions about that when they saw her at the practice. And as she was posting some of that content on social media, people would share like, "This is my dentist. Can you believe it? She's lifting, a couple 100 pounds or what have you." And it just goes to show that people cared about who she was as a person beyond just the dentistry part.
Yeah. I absolutely love that. Cool. What's give us maybe mistake number two?
Mistake number two. All right, so I'm actually going to ask you a question first because I'm,
Okay.
I'm curious if you heard this before. If you ask the dentist, what is it that makes you special? What is it about your practice that makes you special? What do you think their number one answer is?
Um, Dentist as a whole would probably respond in some technical fashion. What makes them special?
Hmm.
I've been trained or I'm accredited or I've been to this institute. I don't know. I
And
don't know where you're going with this, but
yeah,
I'm going to give you my generic answer. Tell me why you
no,
asked that question.
I asked that question because the number one response that I hear about what makes their practice unique, because they know that every other dentist is also getting education and training,
Right.
but they usually answer some version of, Kirk, we treat everybody like family here. That's
Mm,
why patients should trust us.
right.
But my question to them is always, that's great, but you don't know what my relationship with my family is. Maybe Thanksgivings are super awkward. Maybe every time they see me, they ask me for money. Maybe I haven't talked to them in 20 years. So
Yeah.
you telling you're going to treat me like family doesn't necessarily always imply a positive emotion. So I think mistake number two is having a story to tell, or in that case, not having a story to tell, just making generic statements of, we have a nice team, a friendly staff. I've never talked to a dentist who said my team sucks. Like everybody is saying they gonna take care of patients, and everyone is saying that they have a nice team and that they have good expertise. I mean, that's table stake. That's not exceptional. And I believe that in most cases those things are true. But I think the solve here is just telling your story about why you became a dentist and what's important to you. And instead of saying we treat everybody like family, tell me how. Like, how does
Right.
that show up in your practice? You know, maybe you tell me a story about a patient was struggling with, whatever, pain, and you came to the rescue, or you have a patient who has been putting off dentistry for a long time because they're embarrassed about the fact that they have neglected it forever. Tell me how you approached them and how you made them feel comfortable, how you made them feel that it was possible for them to smile again and not be judged and not feel ashamed. So being very specific about what happens in your practice on a day in, day out basis that makes patients feel that way. So it's not coming up with something new. I think sometimes that gets lost as well. They think that they have to invent a marketing message. That's actually not what we're asking. I'm just asking them to explain what is already happening day in and day out because of the kind of person that you are, the kind of culture that you're trying to create, and what stories can we tell that exemplify the fact that you treat people like family and that you really care for your team, as opposed to saying the words, I treat everyone like family and I care for my team. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It makes perfect sense. And you're tell me if this is correct. I mean, the story behind the brand is so fascinating. Whether you go to a winery, even some of the great sports teams that do them now. I had the good fortune of going over to Liverpool and watching a soccer game, and they created an entire experience to explain like the origin of how all of this came together and how, the story itself is so big and so palpable. Like you can feel it before you even watch a soccer match. And so, I mean, even I'm thinking of a dairy that's close to here. It's like the story behind the brand and why it was all created and was started. So I do like it. And even Eric talking about, I remember his story about
Mm-hmm.
his family and the dentist who took care of it. And now as you keep going and like Barrett, who he's not here today, but our CEO, the reason he became a dentist is that one of his best friends, dad, was a dentist and he just loved the life that he had and how he cared for people and went to all the games and all that kind of stuff. So I think what you're alluding to is so important. It's talk about what you care about, a great story to tell, and why you did this in the first place. Your why behind everything, right?
Yeah. And I think, Kirk, one of the things that I always try to remind people too is that when you say, man, you need to have a great story, some people get intimidated by that. It's like, I don't have a great story. I'm a
Right.
regular person. I just chose the next decision that I thought made sense. But the thing is, to someone else, that story can be powerful and it can be unique just because sometimes we tend to devalue our own experiences because those things were always there, or we 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 don't stop to think of ourselves as great or special or unique. Sometimes we think other people are, but not us.
Right.
And I try to remind that, for a
Yeah.
person who's been struggling with their confidence and their smile, you may be exactly your story or how you came to be and the experiences you had and the reasons why you do what you do may be exactly what that person needs to hear.
Yeah. I love it. I absolutely love it. And so you're bringing back memories. We had a marketing conference many years ago, and we had Chris Savage, who created this company called Wistia, come and speak. And so that was back when he was affordable. And I remember getting him to, I paid to get him to be like the keynote speaker. Well, selfishly, I wanted to learn from him too. So I said, Chris, you're coming in for our conference. And he said, yeah, I'm so excited. And he was kicking off the conference. Well, I took him to a sushi restaurant because he loved sushi. And then I actually brought him over to our office. And I'm like, well, if this guy's brilliant, he's a marketing expert. I'm going to have him kind of walk through, and I explained my whole business. And I probably talked for 30 minutes without breathing. And he stops me. He's like, stop, 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 stop. I'm like, what? He's like, you're making this way too hard. I go, why? He goes, you're a marketing genius. Like, I want to tell you, he goes, stop. This just sounds hard. And I'm like, it is. He goes, you know what the secret of marketing is? I'm like, what? He goes, spend the rest of your life talking about what you care about because it's going to attract other people that care about the same thing. And I never forgot that, ever. He said, that's going to be your best investment. You'll be most excited. And he said, at the end of the day, your best clients are going to care about the same things that you care about. But a lot of times consumers don't know what you care about. So, and you actually gave me some show notes beforehand. It's talk about what you care about in the story to tell about you becoming a dentist or your practice, right? Am I on track here?
100%, 100%. And I think it shows, right? When you're excited about topic, you can just talk for hours. It's fun, it's exciting. People can feel the energy there, and it doesn't have to be that hard. There's a client of ours who he's super passionate about not just his hygiene department, but he talks openly about how he thinks his team can go up against any perio team because how much he invests in the hygiene department. Every patient has a pretty extensive, I want to say close to 2 hours first visit where there's no hygiene appointment involved. He sits with them. He talks about health and diet. He gives each new patient a book. Like this guy really cares about this thing. Like for some patients, the idea of going to a dental appointment and spending that much time with their doctor, sounds like a nightmare. If they're the kind of people who want to be in and out in 45 minutes with their hygiene appointment complete, like he is not the right fit.
Right.
But there are some people out there would love the opportunity to spend that time with someone who cares about them as a whole, not just about the dentistry. And when he talks about that, because he cares about it, the people who also value that are going to gravitate towards him and have trust and want to be there. Right. So, one of the times that we were to the top, you talked about the gap between expectation and reality is where conflict is. When you don't care, when you don't talk about what you care about and you don't make it open, what kind of practice you are, who you're looking to serve, what kind of dentistry you're trying to do, you leave a bigger margin for that gap between expectation and reality. Because when you try to appeal to everyone, you connect with no one. And if you're trying to create generic marketing, generic approaches, to so that every patient can see themselves being a patient there, you're leaving out, you're not giving the people who really value what you have to say the chance to get to know you at a deeper level and connect. And I think today, in this day and age, again, because there's so many options for everyone, the people who are really succeeding are the people who are spending the time thinking about who they are and what they're trying to do in this world and sharing that. And they're going to be the ones that they attract the people in their tribe, is how we like to say internally here. You don't need everyone, you need everyone that's in your tribe.
Yeah. Amen, brother. So well said. I agree. What's mistake number 3 that a lot of dentists make?
Yeah. So anytime I talk to someone new about marketing, they want to talk about the ads and the website and the social media campaigns. And we spend a lot of time on that, and that's true. But one of the things that I always like to remind everyone is that marketing isn't just the stuff that's happening outside, the stuff that we're doing for you. It's not just the ads. It's anytime you're engaging with the patient, that's marketing. And, just like you can't outwork out a bad diet, even if you go to the gym every day, if you're just overeating, like you're never going to get fit, you can't outmarket a bad phone experience. So mistake number three is, we a lot of times I see these efforts around creating amazing brands and creating great ad campaigns and websites, but the person who answers the phone is someone who, doesn't, it's the air quotes lowest person on the totem pole, right? It's whoever just most recently joined the practice and has no support, has no training, has no investment into them. And as a result, we don't see the marketing efforts translate into amazing patient experiences on the phone that lead to actual appointment and treatment and so on. And so before, one of the things that we often have conversations about is before we can spend a lot of money on advertising and running ad campaigns, we have to make sure that the person who's answering the phone can deliver the experience that matches the marketing that we're saying. Because if I'm telling people we're a phenomenal practice, we really care about you as a person, and the first question that the person answering the phone asks is, "What's your insurance?" That doesn't scream you care about me. It screams you care about my wallet and whether I can afford this or not. So that misalignment is hard to overcome, and that
Yeah.
happens way too often, Kirk.
It does. I want you to talk about this with the phone too. It's this, you said expectations and reality, but in marketing, we're constantly testing what we see. It's funny you just said that because we're upgrading our internet here, and I've got a whole bunch of web techs, and I won't mention the name of the franchise, but it's an amazing burger place around here. And the guy came up because he's like, where can I go? I'm like, go right there. He's like, well, on the board, it looked that big. And then when I got the burger, it was really small. So it was okay. And you could tell like he was thinking one thing, but he experienced another. And I'm guessing, and we experience this too when I call a dental office, like, this is supposed to be a great dental office. Somehow it lowers my trust for them. Even if I come in, my trust is a little bit lower, don't you think?
100%, 100%. Because as the marketing and the things that you're saying out there to the world, you're trying to build trust. You're trying to show that you care. You're trying to show what kind of person you are. You're trying to show your before and afters to show that you're clinically a good dentist. You're doing all of that work to build trust so that they feel like this is the right choice.
Right.
And when the phone experience isn't that, it creates doubt. Yeah, because we've all had an experience, like you said, your friend, of being sold something or expected something that you didn't get, and that's a that's a crummy feeling. I mean, no one wants that. You want to keep that energy and the emotional high going throughout the journey, so that people can actually say, "I've never been to a dental practice that was like this." You
Yeah.
know, and I think that's the most impactful marketing, because it's not just the ads and the website and all those things. It's about the feeling that you create with patients. And you're
Right
creating
on.
that feeling every time you engage with them.
Yeah. And Andre, I'll just play the listener here. That's like, Andre, I totally get it, but I'm so busy with dentistry. I don't know how they're answering the phone. I don't know what's going on up there. And I mean, I'm sure you hear that all the time. I don't know where
Mhm.
to go for great phone training. I mean, I have a couple solutions for that,
Yeah,
but
you know a
like,
guy.
yeah, I know a guy, but he's or you might say, listen, that's easy for you to say, Andre, but I can't get anybody to answer our ads that will answer the phone. So I'm just throwing you the natural curveballs
Mhm,
we hear.
mhm,
So
mhm.
what are your thoughts on those?
Kirk, you know us enough by now to know that we care a lot about culture, right? Because culture is the core of everything else and how it manifests itself in your business. And so people who I hear that from, I usually ask them back, how would you rate the culture in your office and how do you care for your team? Because the people who invest in that piece, their team members naturally want to deliver that amazing experience for the patients, not because they have a script and if they don't do it, they're going to get in trouble, is because they genuinely feel that way about their doctor and their team. They genuinely believe that they are the best people in town and they want to help more people. They want to take care of people. So it's not so much these scripts, right? You can find phone scripts on the internet if they didn't want to hire a coach, or someone to help them. And sometimes you hire a coach and someone to help them, and they still can't make that shift happen. And I think because it starts with how you take care of your team, and is that truly the culture of the office? Because if you have all of the right verbiage, but people don't feel that feeling inside, it still doesn't feel authentic on the phone. It still doesn't work. And so, yeah, I think if you're too busy to invest in your team and take care of the people around you, I think you need to slow down, before you can go fast again, because otherwise it's just, you never get to where you want to go that way.
You said that so well. I'm so proud of you. You're a marketing guy. You're talking about culture. Look at that. So,
It's, I want to tell the truth here. It didn't start
yeah,
there. I used to think that if we just did a really good job at our part,
right.
that dentists were going to throw parades for us and we're going to cheer success and everything was going to work. And pretty early on, we realized that sometimes that isn't the case. And we start trying to dig into, if we're seeing all this activity and all these positive signs, externally to the practice, and we're not getting results, like why could that be? And that's
Yeah.
where we realize that it takes a whole village to make this thing work, and that piece is critical. And unfortunately, I don't know if you ever thought about this, Kirk, but Eric and I have talked about this before. To become a dentist, you go to dental school. Makes sense. To become a hygienist, you go to hygiene school. Become an assistant, you get training for that. But the person who is both in charge of the very first patient experience, they're in charge of the schedule. Sometimes they're even in charge of extra things like billing and insurance and all that. Like they have so much influence on the success of the practice.
Yep.
And there's very little training. I've never seen a, admin school and a certificate of excellence. I don't really know what that looks like, but it stands out to me as odd that this player is so valuable and is often the most sort of neglected role in the practice.
Yeah. It's so true. And those team members can make a big impact. And back to what you said before, culture is king. I mean, it really does solve a lot of problems, more problems than you would think, because team members do want to go to bat for you when you have the right culture. And then the other thing to just think about is you'll hear this sentiment all the time where people say patients come first. Patient, no, they don't. Like it's a nice phrase, but team members come first. You can see practices in which patients come first. The culture's a mess
Mm-hmm.
because the patients come first. The patient matters most. So I think, in the end, you got to create something long term that works. And it's about making a big commitment to taking care of your people instead of trying to figure out, how do you reprimand them or how do you rehabilitate them type of a thing. So I love what you're saying. So I want to go back to the phone thing real quick. So when you do have somebody who's good at the phone, they're right person, right seat, and they're moving in the right direction, give us some type of insight on conversion percentages. For years, people have always said marketing metrics matter because the phone conversion is important. Do you have any thoughts on that? As
Mm-hmm.
far as how many patients should be converted when they call a dental office. And you could obviously say, well, it depends if they're the right fit for your practice. But I don't know. I just wanted to get some feedback from you on, um, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, yeah. So because we know that this piece is so important, a couple of years ago, we invested into building a system to actually track the phone calls that we're generating and listen to them, not just to find out which marketing channels are driving the most calls and the valuable calls, but to understand that question. When the marketing is working, what does that look like in terms of conversion versus when it's not working? And here's some of the interesting numbers that I have to share. The average practice that we track phone calls for converts roughly 45 to 50% of the new patient phone calls. And then when I say new patient phone calls, I mean quite literally someone on our team listened to that call and knew it was a new patient, not, something else, trying to book an appointment.
Right.
Now, those numbers can be skewed from practice to practice. I'm looking at the entire portfolio average. And what can skew it is, for example, if you're the kind of practice that collects insurance information first and then tells the patient you're going to call them back, we don't have visibility to those calls. Your number will be artificially lower because I'm going to count that call as not converted, right? Because you
Right.
didn't book an appointment right then and there. But we do see practices that convert 60, 70, even 80% of the new patient phone calls. And the key difference when we listen to those calls and the ones that are below average is that the calls are longer. They spend more time understanding the patient and asking questions. So when a patient calls and asks, how much is a crown? Instead of saying either it's X many dollars or saying, I'm sorry, I just can't tell you, they engage conversation around, Kirk, I'm happy to look that up for you, but while I do that, are you new to the area? How did you find us? How did you know that you need the crown? Did you go somewhere else? Because our doctor is really conservative. I see people that come in all the time, are looking for procedures like crowns, but he is actually able to save their tooth and save them some money. So I always like to understand how you came to decide that you needed one and all that. So in there, you're trying to build a little bit of a relationship. You're asking them about, who they are, how they came to be here. You're also bragging a little bit about you're a doctor and what you can do, and introducing the concept of maybe they don't even need it.
Right.
So we see that those calls are longer because they're trying to understand the patient, and at the same time, I hate to use the word sell, but sell and brag a little bit about the practice. That is one of the biggest differentiators that we see between the higher conversion rate and the smaller one. Another key interesting metric that we see is on average, roughly 20, 30% of phone calls that come to a practice go unanswered, whether it's a voicemail or just a busy tone or just, not get picked up. And I often hear patients or clients argue that these must be after hour calls and maybe they're, the weekends, but sometimes it's not. It's just that oftentimes the practice is too busy, like you were talking about earlier, to be able to answer the phone calls, and they don't have sort of a rollover system. And they think that patients are leaving voicemails, but only 12% of patients actually leave a voicemail. And so you're likely missing more patients than you know just by virtue of it's not super trackable unless you're being intentional, like, with it.
Yeah. I love it. These are great metrics. Very important to understand. And even if you get a little bit of improvement in your conversion, you're talking about one more patient that you're adding to the practice every single day. Now, you also mentioned this marketing is every patient interaction. It's not an ad, it's not a website, it's not a social post. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, it's exactly that. I think anytime, the way I would define marketing is anytime a patient or prospective patient in this case is engaging with your brand, whether it's online, whether it's in the office, with your team members. It could be at an event, it could be uh, in the practice. You're telling them a little bit more about who you are, and you're creating a feeling about that engagement. So we look at marketing everything from, like I said, the advertising that's online, the website, but it's the phone answering, it's that first visit. When the patient walks into the practice, does someone greet them? Do they not get greeted? Do they get an office tour? What is the experience, at your chair? What's the experience as they are brought back to the front? What's the experience after they've left? Do they get, a thank you note? Do they get a review request right away? Like all of those things are creating a feeling throughout that patient journey. And all of those are opportunities for improvement and creating the intention that you want. Because just like culture, like every business has culture, right? It's not I don't really like that idea, Kirk. I don't want it. I don't want to worry about that. Well, guess what? You still have a culture. It's
Right.
whether or not it's going to be intentional
Yeah.
or it's going to happen to you. So
Right.
in the same way, every patient has a patient experience with your brand and they're feeling something. It's just a matter of, do you want to invest into that being intentional, or do you want to just let it happen to you?
Yeah. And then what percentage of your practice new patients should be coming from existing patients? Give us some perspective on
Yeah. So, one of the key metrics that we see is really healthy, successful practices are getting roughly 50 or so, 50, 60% of their new patients every month from an existing patient. So if you're listening to this podcast and you go look at last month's numbers, if you got 20 new patients last month, if 10, 12 of them are not from an existing patient or team member referral, that signals two things to me. Number one is either you're not talking about it, you're not being intentional with it, which at some amount of the time is the case. But it can sometimes be a red flag, Kirk, that the patient experience in the practice isn't where it needs to be because people aren't leaving excited. They're not telling their friends about it. When they see, when a friend asks, who their dentist is, they don't feel that sure about referring you. They say things like, yeah, my guy is all right. My lady is just fine. She does my cleaning and that's fine. We're not going for fine. If you want to build an amazing business, you want people to feel like they love it and they want to tell their friends about it. So that's usually a red flag on something culturally in the patient experience that's not happening if you're not getting those referrals.
Yeah, I love it, buddy. Good stuff, man. I can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing some of those thoughts. I'm going to have you back again and again and talk about other things in dental marketing. Give us some final thoughts on mistakes that dentists or dental office teams make in marketing.
I think the parting thought that I have is this. As you listen to this episode and you think, man, a lot of this sounds hard. It's not. The bar isn't perfection. The bar is improvement. The bar is if you have a phone that's somewhat recent phone, that's good enough to get some pictures, to get some videos with you and the team and the patients. And having that real content out there is categorically better than continuing to have stock photography.
Yeah.
Think about, so that's for mistake number one. For number two is think about just talking about who you are as a person. Don't worry about if that's a great marketing tagline or what that is, in fact, air quotes, great story. Just be who you are. Don't try to follow the latest trends. Don't become a TikTok dancing dentist if that's not who you are. Just be who you are. Just make sure that the people who haven't met you yet have at least the opportunity to get a peek behind the curtain and get to know you. And if you do that, the right patients will find you. And number three is just invest in your team and I would start at the admin team. They're much more powerful sometimes than we think in terms of playing a role in success of the practice, and they're usually not kind of forgotten in some capacity. So all I'm trying to say is these are all very achievable. You don't need to hire a company like us to help you do it. You can do it on your own if you put some effort behind it.
Yeah, so well said. Thank you, Andre, for being on. I know people are listening, are going to want to know more about your company and what do you do. So if I'm listening to this podcast, where do I go? Find out more about you guys.
Yeah, you can go to painfreedentalmarketing.com to learn about us and hear about our culture and our team and what we do. You can find us on Instagram. We have our own podcast, Bite Size Dental Marketing, where we talk, we have a lot of ad coaches there. We talk to a lot of different people in the industry. We're trying to add value and help people grow, even if you're not a client, so we believe in that. If you give, everything else will work out. So those are just a few places you can get some helpful advice and learn more about us. See if we're a good culture fit for you.
And you will be, no question. So Andre, thank you so much for being on, brother. Appreciate you. Just great stuff. Thank you
so much, Kirk.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So
looking
stick
forward
around.
to the next one.
Yeah, absolutely. Stick around while we say goodbye to everybody else. But thank you guys for listening to the Best Practices Show podcast. Here at Act Dental and BPA, we vet our partners. And I'll tell you, Pain-Free Dental Marketing has been a great partner of ours for a long time. And a lot of it goes back to just values. We share the same core values. And we couldn't be more thrilled to work with a great group of people. So make sure you guys check it out. You can reach out to anybody over there and they'll help you every step of the way. If you weren't taking notes today, don't worry. That's what we do here. We're taking show notes for you. You can flip up to the show notes. You're going to see links to everything we mentioned, and you can just click on the links and head over there. So thank you guys for listening. Thanks for sharing these podcasts. It keeps growing. I don't know how, but we're just absolutely thrilled. So appreciate you guys. So until we see you guys next time, or you hear from us next time, keep watching or keep listening to the Best Practices Show. You guys enjoy your day.